Welcome back, everybody. My name is Nick. This is Swiftful Thinking. In this series, we are learning Git and source control. And in the last video, we talked about how to branch and how to merge. And one thing we didn't really cover was merge conflicts. So unfortunately, this is one of the hardest videos in this series because we're talking about merge conflicts. So this happens when you branch your code base and when you go to merge it back into the main code base, but there is some conflict between these two versions that you're trying to merge. So when we go to merge it, source control doesn't know automatically which change is correct. It needs to ask us, it needs to say, hey, there's a conflict between these two versions. I don't really understand which change is the one that I should take, which is the correct output. And as a developer, we need to resolve these conflicts manually. So in this video, we'll walk through the steps and actually create some fake conflicts so that we can literally go through this motion. As we get into the weeds, I will talk a little bit about how this is something that unfortunately does not get easier. Dealing with conflicts is probably the hardest and most annoying part of dealing with version control. So most of the time we want to avoid having any conflicts in our code base. That has a lot to do with when you branched and what architecture you're using. But at a high level, we basically want to avoid conflicts, but if we do have conflicts, we want to know how to resolve them. And so that's why we're taking the time in this video to just go through the basics of resolving some simple conflicts. Most of the time, conflicts get worse with more engineers, bigger branches, and bigger teams. So if you're working by yourself, it's probably not something that's going to be super common, but once you get into a large production environment, conflicts are going to happen all the time, and you're going to have to know how to deal with them. Welcome back, everybody. We are in a series all about Git and source control, and we have learned a lot so far. We have learned how to set up GitHub, how to set up Gitkraken. We have learned how to create and clone repositories, both locally and remote repositories. We've learned all about committing and commit messages. We've learned about staging and stashing, pushing and pulling. Last video, we did branching and merging. And in this video, we're talking about conflicts and resolving conflicts. We're going to keep this simple, but this is probably the most difficult part of Git and source control. Merge conflicts. This is when you're trying to merge one branch into another, and there's a conflict, so it can't just automatically merge. You have to tell source control which changes you want. If there's a conflict, you have to decide which of those changes to take, or to take both of the changes, or to take none of the changes. But source control needs to know how to resolve that conflict to have some sort of output. Let's get started here. We're going to fake a conflict. So firstly, I'm going to right click, create a new branch from main, and let's call this one, I'm going to put my initials NS, and let's call this one change heart icon, create. Look at my canvas right now, I can see. But if I look at this, I can see that the heart.fill icon is on the screen. And let's change it to home.fill, or sorry, house.fill. Cool. All right, this is the change that I wanted to do. Option Command C, let's commit that. And let's make that a new feature. We're going to say feature, change icon to house.fill was heart.fill. Let's stage it, let's commit it. And then let's, of course, push this up to the remote repo. Ignore my typo, but push it to the remote repo. Imagine at the same time that I was doing this, another developer on my team came along, and let's just pretend like we are that other developer for a second. Let's switch to the main branch. Let's create another branch from main. And this time, let's say my initials are ABC. And this person had the same ticket and is trying to fix the same thing. So they also make a branch. They named it slightly different. But they are basically coming to the content view, and then they go and they try to change the heart icon. So maybe this person makes it into bolt.fill. Cool. Option Command C. Let's commit this feature. And let's do a feature. We'll say change heart icon to bolt. Stage, commit. Let's also make sure that we are now push this up to GitHub. Cool. Now we have two branches that have done the exact same thing, right? And so let's pretend like this other person, this update heart icon by ABC, has been merged into main. So if I switch to the main branch, let's merge ABC's branch into the main branch. So merge. Are you sure you want to merge? Yes. Okay, cool. There was no problems. It merged perfectly. We can see that it went. And when I look at it on Kraken, I can see that this was merged right into main. Now if I push main to the remote, it is merged in perfect. Now let's try to merge our other branch, change heart icon, into main. So we're going to go to change heart icon and merge. Merge. And we get this other screen that pops up here. This is the screen to resolve conflicts. So we can see here, there's a C, a red C. It means conflict on the left. And it's telling me that there's a conflict between one version and another version on this project here. So I can see the conflict here, right? So this is what we're trying to merge in. And this is what has been merged in the time between when we created this project and when we were merging it in. Because when we first created this branch over here, right, there was no problem. It said heart.fill or whatever it is. And if I just merged into heart.fill like we just did, there would be no conflict. It's okay to change this line of code. The conflict is coming because this person changed it on a branch that was outdated from our branch. So this branch never knew about this commit. And we can even see it in Git Kraken, right? You can see as we're trying to merge it, this branch here never got this commit. And so that's what it's asking here. It's saying, hey, we have a problem trying to merge this. And in Git Kraken, you can even see it as well. I like the Git Kraken output. I generally use Git Kraken for this sort of thing. But in Xcode, we can see, okay, here's the conflict. Now let's tell the system, what do we want the output to be? So just very simply click here, choose left, choose right, left then right, or right then left. Which one do I want it to be? If I choose right then left, it's going to say take the right, house.fill, and then take the left, bolt.fill, and put them both in the code. That's not what we want, obviously. We want maybe just choose right. So now this is now going to become this in my final output. So this is my final output of what it's going to be. I could also just choose left and we say, you know what, ignore this, but let's just choose right. In Git Kraken, the same thing though. Git Kraken, I like this view much better actually. I have the left and I have the right. And I can just click take the left, or I can click take the right, or I can click both. So if I click both to checked, I can see the output down here. If I check only one, I can see the output down here. So let's take just the house.fill. So you can see that that's the output, and I can click save up here. I'm going to actually do it in Xcode though, because I'm assuming most of you guys are in Xcode. So let's choose the right and let's merge. So once we resolve all of our conflicts, then we can go ahead and we can merge them. I can see here that the merge has successfully merged, and now let's push that merge back up to main just so that it is updated. I can now delete both of these branches. And for what it's worth, before I move on here, a lot of times when you have a specific branch like this, where it's a specific feature you're fixing, if you're working on a team, you probably have a Jira board with Jira tickets or something like that. So the problem of fixing this icon probably has a ticket somewhere. It probably went through your system. Your manager said, here's a ticket or here's a document on what to fix. Oftentimes when you get those tickets on Jira, they have an acronym to them. So it might be ticket number XYZ123. And so a lot of people, when they're creating branches, especially if they're related to Jira tickets, are actually going to name the branches like XYZ123 dash, update feature. So if there's a ticket number for this, I'll put that commit in the branch name. Firstly, Jira can pick it up, but secondly, other developers who look at the branches can see, oh, there's already a branch with this ticket on it. So just one idea to kind of resolve this problem. But this is generally how it happens. There's two people working simultaneously. One gets merged in, and then the second one now has a conflict, and they need to resolve the conflict before being able to merge. So that was a very simple merge conflict. We're going to do one more that's just a little bit more code, just to show another example. So let's delete these branches that we just made. I'm going to delete. Where's the delete button? Delete, 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 and delete. Let's go back into Xcode quick. In here, I'm going to refresh the file status, make sure I don't have those branches anymore. And let's do one more merge conflict. So right click, new branch. Let's say ns underscore ticket number. Ticket number is like ST123. And let's say fix some code. Click create. So now I'm going to come in here. I'm going to fix some code, right? I'm going to change my content view, and let's delete this. Let's put in a scroll view here, and let's put in maybe a VStack and some for each 0 less than 20 item in. And let's go maybe a text that says, yo, cool. Let's commit it. Option, command, C, feature, add, scroll view, stage all, commit. We don't need to push it because we're just going to merge it locally. So I'm just going to keep it local for now. And then while we're at this though, let's jump back in. Let's switch back to the main branch. Main branch here. From the main branch, maybe another developer comes through, ABC. They create a branch for ST123, and let's just call it add new title or whatever it is that this ticket is doing. This person comes in here and says, okay, cool. In the content view, let's fix this, right? Let's change the title to some new title. Let's change the image to a globe, and let's change the subscribe now button to a click me button. Awesome. Option, command C. Let's feature, and we'll say new updates to content view. Just call it that for now. Stage it, commit it. And now we're going to try to merge. So which one should we merge first? Let's merge first the NS branch. So the NS branch has the add scroll view. Let's switch back to main. And let's right click and let's merge into main. Merge, fix some code into main. Looks like it works, no problem. Awesome. Now let's right click and try to merge this other version into main. Merge. Whoa, now we get these conflicts. And so this is slightly more difficult, but again, still pretty simple conflict, right? It's hard to tell here what output do we want because these are very different. And realistically, in a larger app, you might have conflicts on 20 different files that you have to go through here. This is just showing us one file on the left, but it could be conflicts in every single file. I'm not going to talk too much about it, but this is where architecture starts to get really important. Because you can imagine if you have lots of team members and all of those team members are working at the same time. Everyone's building features simultaneously. If you have all of your code in one file, so the entire app is coming through one file, then every time that we merge each other's code, we're going to have conflicts, right? Think about it like a Google Doc. If everybody's in the same Google Doc, everyone's change is affecting everyone else's change all the time. That's going to ultimately slow us down as a team. Because every time we try to merge something, every time I finish a feature and I want to merge it in, I now have to deal with these conflicts. And imagine situations like this, where you're the guy on the right and someone on the left merged this, and you have no idea what this was about. You have no idea why they did this, what feature this is. Is this related? Is this new? Is this old? Obviously you can message them, but we would prefer to just not have any of these conflicts. If we don't have these conflicts, I can merge and call it done. I can move on to the next thing. So really we want to avoid these conflicts. And one of the solutions for that ultimately is creating good architecture in your app. Because if everything's in one file, then you have everyone updating the same file. But if every team is in their own area of the code base, if every feature has its own file, if all the files are separate, then you could have different developers and different teams working in different areas of the code base. And so if my team only ever works in file ABC, and nobody else does, then I know that nobody else is going to have conflicts with my changes. So it's a little abstract at this level, but if you join a larger team, the larger the team, the more architecture they need. Most of that is because if everything is together, everything is coupled, you run into merge conflict hell. I've seen teams literally freeze because they can't resolve all of their conflicts. Like imagine you spent 2 weeks building a feature, someone else spent 2 weeks building their feature. Now you guys go to merge it, and all of a sudden there's so many conflicts, both your features break. that would just be a waste of time for everybody, not to mention headaches trying to resolve them. So oftentimes we want to add architecture to our app to resolve problems like this. But even if we do that, there's cases where we have merge conflicts like this. So we need to pick and choose which ones we want. So what I want to do here is actually take the left, but I also want to take some bits on the right. So I actually want to take this VStack and let's put it down here instead of the text of yo. Cool. So now I have this final output and I can merge that in. Before I do that though, I want to show you on Git Kraken, I can do the same thing. In Git Kraken, we go to merge and it's a little bit more clear of what's happening here. So the default output it's giving me is, do you want to do this? I'm going to say, no, I want to do this. Let's also take the right side because I want this as well in the final output. But I don't want it down here. I want it in my for each loop. So let's actually just cut this. Let's cut all these new lines here and we can paste them in here. So I'll delete this. And we have this new output of this. And so I will fix this, fix the formatting here, fix the formatting here, as well as here and here and here. Cool. Now, what I want to point out while I did this, and you can see it very clearly here, is that there was an extra bracket down here, right? And it didn't register that this bracket was new, right? Because it was already in the old version, even though this bracket is for something slightly different than it is for this bracket, right? So this is the end of the button, but it's the same bracket on line 48, 47, but it's actually for the scroll view now. So when I click this, it didn't include that extra row here. So when I see this, I could just manually come in here and write that bracket, right? But let's pretend for a second I didn't see it. And even while I was in here, I didn't see that as well. I can see the red changed here, but only because I copied and pasted the whole thing do I actually see this. So for example, let's stop the merge in Xcode. So I'm going to do this without that final bracket. I'm going to save it. I can see it's now staged, and let's do a merge commit and let's say add, what do we do? Add updates to content view on scroll view. And let's commit changes to one file. All right. So I got it here, but now let me open up Xcode quick. We're on main. Let's make sure, let's refresh file status. Unknown error occurred, and let's click run. So we can see here that even though we merged it, it's still not compiling. And we know why, right? We're missing the extra bracket. So I wanted to point out here that a large thing to keep in mind is, even though we can resolve the conflicts, that's not compiling the code at the same time. So we resolve the conflicts and the source control is like, good, there's no conflicts. We can merge this. But even after we merged it, we actually still have a code that doesn't compile. So there's a lot of times where you are going to spend time trying to merge, trying to resolve conflicts, thinking you did it right. And then you build the app afterward and you realize, wow, I merged things and things went wrong. So I do this often. And sometimes, honestly, the easiest way is to get the merge done and then fix whatever you need to fix afterward. For example, this is easy. I can just say, okay, what's my line break here? Well, maybe if I go like this and Control I can see the formatting problems. I can see that we missed a bracket somewhere. Okay, cool. Add this bracket. Looks like it now compiles. Cool. Option Command C. All right, I had to restart Xcode really quickly. Let's go Option Command C. We can see this change, and let's do a clean. Let's say fix or resolve merge conflict. Command, stage it, commit it, push it up to main. Cool. All right, so that's all we're really going to talk about for merge conflicts. Unfortunately, fixing merge conflicts is not something that gets easier. It probably only gets harder. And that's because conflicts only happen when there are conflicts. And oftentimes that it's the one day that you don't want to deal with it. It happens when you build a full feature and you go to merge it in, you don't realize somebody else built all this other code, and then you have lots and lots of conflicts to fix. But now you guys at least know what a conflict is and how to at least attempt to resolve it. It's basically, do I want to take the new stuff? Do I want to take the old stuff? Do I want to take both? What should the output be? And we need to tell source control exactly what the output should be. Let's delete these other branches that we don't need anymore because I want to keep my commit history pretty clean here. And the last thing that I'll note here, I'm not going to actually go through it, but when I have these branches, I can also be merging these branches into each other. I don't always need to merge back into main. I've been doing that just because I want to keep our main branch going for right now. But I can create a branch and then create another branch and then merge my second branch into my first branch. So oftentimes when I'm building a feature, that's the flow. It's like create a branch for the feature and then maybe create a branch for each sub aspect of the feature, depending on how complex that feature is, of course. When I talk about Git flow towards the end of the series, we're going to go much more into detail about that setup. Now you guys at least know how to branch and resolve merge conflicts. We are really getting there, but we still have a lot to go, so I hope you guys are still excited. Thank you all for watching. As always, my name is Nick. This is Swiftful Thinking, and I'll see you in the next video.